All right, welcome to the Krueger Show, everybody. It is July the 28th, noon on the West Coast, 3 o'clock on the East Coast. It's brought to you by the great people at Pig in a Pickle. Not to mention Underdog Fantasy, New York style Italian sausage. We got a brand new sponsor we'll be bringing in later this week, and Marin Auto Glass. And we'll have more on the sponsors later on. But it is my absolute pleasure to welcome back to the Krueger Show, Jody Mack. If you're a Bay Area sports fan, you've been listening to Jody Mack for years. CBS Sports Radio, you catch him on the weekends. It's broadcast on KMBR. WIP does nights over there. You've heard him in the past on WFAN. You can also catch him on the Jacob Media YouTube channel, Birds 365 on YouTube. But today he is with us on the Krueger Show to talk Niners Eagles. Jody Mack, how are you, man?
When I get out there to San Francisco, I want one of those New York sausage. I want to see how it travels out to you guys out there in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what is the, is it Philly cheesesteaks in the tailgate? What is the tailgate du jour out there? I know cheesesteaks are big in Philly, but they might be hard to do at a tailgater.
In Philadelphia, the most important ingredient is barley and hops. We're talking beer. If there's food, it's a sidelight. It's to sop up a little of the alcohol content, but mostly you're staying as hydrated as possible at a Philadelphia tailgate.
Jody, now where are you originally from? Where are you? Are you a Philly guy? Are you a New York guy? I know you commandeer both markets.
Yes, New Yorker, born and bred. At age 30, I moved down to Philadelphia. So I basically spent half my life in New York, half my life in Philadelphia. The last 30 down in Philly. So and I still go back to New York to do shows and stuff like that. So I'm a by-town guy.
Okay, so my Yankee fans, my Yankee friends, my New York friends describe the Philly fan for me. It's like they're like the intensity of the New York fan, but just angrier and more frustrated.
Yeah, I guess you could go there. Because having done shows in both towns for over 30 years, I describe one of the shortcomings in each town where they're very different. In Philadelphia, I got to town 1990. Buddy Ryan was the head coach. And it was hysterical to me that some people thought Buddy Ryan was the greatest coach in history of the National Football League, better than Shula, better than Hallis, better than anybody ever, because he was a tough guy and he talked trash, and they absolutely loved him because of it. And there were other Philadelphia fans who thought they should just take him out to the parking lot and put a bullet in his head because this guy is useless and he's not representing us and he has no idea that they play offensive football. Such a diverse that you could think he's the greatest coach ever to the guy should be fired like 22 minutes ago. They can get really divided. That's a problem for me. Either the guy is good. The answer is somewhere in the middle, but try and tell that to a Philadelphia fan who's dug in with their opinion. In New York, they'll second guess you when you win. That you win a World Series. The Yankees won the World Series in 6, but if Torre had done this, that, and the other thing, they would have won it in 4.
Right.
In Philadelphia, they put you on a pedestal. You win a championship, you never buy another drink in the town for the rest of your life. So each of them have their quirks. Each of them have their strong suits and their really weird ways of handling things. But I'm big fans in both of those two towns.
Well, we Niner fans beware, because you wear your colors in Philly. You're going to hear about it. You're going to probably feel it, and wear your colors proudly, but keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, and clapping is allowed. Fist pumping and or turning around, that'll get you in trouble. That might get some physicality going.
Well, and if Philly fans want to remember a good memory, they can think of last year's NFC Championship game. If Niner fans want to think of a good Philly memory, they can think of the early season game in Philly a couple years ago, where the Niners came to Philly on a beautiful day early in the year and took out the Eagles. So, all right, let's get into this matchup. Are the Eagles as good a team as they were last year? How do you compare last year's team to this year's team?
Krueger, I said this on my Birds 365 show this morning, and I conflated a couple of great rock and roll groups. I said you can either consider the Eagles Living on the Edge by Bon Jovi, which of course that's not right. It's Living on the Edge is Aerosmith. Or you could say the Philadelphia Eagles are living on a prayer like Bon Jovi. So, yeah, right now, either one of them fit for the Eagles. They're doing things that just don't add up. when you get outgained 500 yards to 300 yards like they were this past week by Buffalo. You're not supposed to win the game. They did. When you have a turnover margin that they lose almost every single week. The Eagles last year, the team that ended up beating your team in the championship game, went to the Super Bowl, won the turnover battle almost every single week. This year, they don't. They're just not getting turnovers. That ugly fumble against Buffalo this past week. They're overcoming certain issues that you don't usually overcome in the National Football League, but you look up the standings and they're 10-1, and you go, okay, they just find a way to win. I said this last night on WIP. Al Davis would love this team because one of his most famous quotes was, just win, baby.
Right.
What this Eagle team does. They do it in weird ways. They have to overcome their own issues. But at the end of the game, they seem to almost always have the more points than anybody else at 10-1 so far this year.
They've had 4 straight games where they've trailed at halftime, Jody, and yet they come back in the second half, and man, Hurts was on fire in the second half against Buffalo. Is there any reason that you could see why they kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say mess around in the first half. I don't want to disrespect these other teams, and I haven't seen every single one of these games, but I've seen a few of them, and I saw the Dallas game, and I don't know, they were the better team, but they just kind of let Dallas hang. Is there a reason? I mean, 4 straight games they've trailed at halftime, 4 straight games they've won.
They are a clutch team. I got to give them that much. I said this about the Eagles starting 8 weeks ago. They check a lot of boxes, which, oh, by the way, your 49er team does too. They got top talent, as do the 49ers. They have physicality. They play good physical football. They have the biggest, toughest defensive line in all of football, and the same can be said on the offensive line. They've got a little bit of the clutch gene in them. They make big plays at big times, a.k.a. Jalen Hurts this past week, and he's done it several times this year. Or if not, a Josh Sweat coming off the edge of Hassan Reddick getting a big sack. So that's a big part of it too. And then you add in a little luck, which you can never add in. Either you get luck, it's handed to you, or you don't. Drop pass by Marquez Valdez-Scantling against the Chiefs a couple weeks ago. Under 2 minutes ago, he's behind Bradley Roby, and he just flat out drops it. This week, the kid out of the backfield, not White, Buffalo's running back. Why am I forgetting his name?
Cook.
Wide open on a wheel route, and he's in the end zone if he catches the ball. Drops it. They've had a couple of incidents where the bounces have gone their way, where they've gotten a little bit lucky. If you check the first 3 boxes, you're going to be a damn good team. You're going to be a playoff team anyway. You add that 4th box of luck, that's how you get to 10-1.
All right, now let's talk about some of the jawing back and forth. Hassan Reddick, said earlier this week, man, it was a lot of boo-hoos last year, a lot of crying, a lot of what-ifs, a lot of this, a lot of that. They get a chance to come back in here, line up that S, and prove it again. And the 49ers, did talk some smack after losing last year, which you typically don't do. Deebo Samuel said in May, he basically said, I ain't going to keep going on about what could have happened, what would have happened. But yeah, it would have definitely been a different outcome. We lost because we played with 10 people. What do you think about the jawing back and forth in this one? I mean, are the Niners have circled this, X'd it, highlighted it. This is a huge game. I don't want to say it's the whole season, but it's a huge deal here. How you guys have is this a huge deal, or did the Niners talking after they lost make this a bigger deal? Break this one down, because Eagles Chiefs I would think would be a bigger deal there than Eagles Niners.
Funny. I debated that with my partner last week, this week on my show on Birds 365. The added value of the Eagles and Chiefs is Kelsey versus Kelsey, and the Eagles versus Andy Reid. The 49ers don't have any players who are brothers with Philadelphia Eagle players, and Kyle Shanahan may be an offensive genius, but he's got no ties to Philadelphia. So different ways to look at it as to which is the bigger rivalry. Eagles play the 49ers more often than they do the Chiefs, but the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, from an Eagle perspective, Chiefs beat them last year. Chiefs won the biggest game of the year. Eagles lost the Super Bowl, so they had to go a little revenge. Coming into this one, the team looking for revenge, of course, is the 49ers. Here was my whole take on the crosstalk after the game, what you can say, can't say, bulletin board material. to Deebo Samuel and members of your San Francisco media, call Vanna White and ask to buy a different consonant. Because if they had said we could have won the game with Brock Purdy, I don't think anybody can say anything. Yeah, you could have. He was that good. And yeah, Josh Johnson. Shame on the 49ers for having him as their backup. That's on the organization that they go into a game with a non-NFL quarterback as your backup quarterback. But Purdy was that good. And I said all last year I thought Purdy wasn't going to be given enough credit. I still believe this year Purdy's not getting enough credit. So you can say we could have won the game. But to say we would have won the game, yeah, you don't know that. The Eagles were damn good last year. They earned their way there, and they kind of ran you off the field with your backup quarterback. So the only issue I have is the use of one continent, a W instead of a C. If they had said could, I would have no problems with it. If not, and Deebo and many others did say would have won the game, yeah, the Eagles are using that as bulletin board material. And the A.J. Brown came out today and said, it's Troll Deebo Samuel week. You have my permission. So, yeah, there's some good blood between these teams, which should make for a great game on Sunday.
I think more than anything, the most annoying part of this Philly team is Sirianni. Mugging for the cameras and talking trash to Chief fans. And I don't think Niners don't have any problem with any of these Eagle players. But there's something about Sirianni that rubs me in particular wrong, but many of the fans. But what do you think? I mean, you've probably had a chance to talk to him or interview him. What do you think of Sirianni? How's he viewed there? I know I heard he watches that or listens to that song, No Shortcut Home or whatever from Rocky IV to motivate himself. What do you think of Sirianni, Jody?
Number one, he's an outstanding coach. And you come in, taking over a team that had been 4-11-1 the year before, get them to the playoffs. Yeah, 9-8, snuck into the playoffs, got their tails beat badly down in Tampa. But to go from one of the worst records in the league to get in the playoffs next year, pretty damn good. Second year, go to the Super Bowl. That's outstanding. So his track record is his track record. Always followed it up with 10-1 this year. So if you're just looking at him as a coach, he's been a massive overachiever. As a guy, and the players love him. The players absolutely love him, play hard for him. Couldn't have a better grasp on his locker room than he could. That he does. Does he wear his sleeves on his emotions? Yeah, he does. Does he go overboard? Yes. Does he push the boundaries of professionalism, if not trample them? Yeah, he does. That's him. And he doesn't apologize for it. And at some point, it could come back to bite him in the butt. I'll give you a little side story that didn't get near as much possibility as when he does something stupid like go into the stands and go, yeah, we beat you. After the game, he couldn't find Sean McDermott, coach of the Bills, who is a Philly guy, former defense coordinator in Philadelphia, and his parents still live in Philadelphia. It was such a madhouse because it was a walk-off touchdown. He could never find him. Went into the tunnel, waited till after he talked to his team, went down the tunnel to find the Bills locker room and go in and make sure that he shook McDermott's hands. So he understands it. He gets, he's a class guy, but he just loses his mind when the Eagles win and he does things that, yeah, I could see where it would annoy other teams after the fact. And that's Sirianni, and he'll deal with the consequences thereafter, but he's just the kind of guy who wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Some of us older guys, I remember Jimmy Johnson. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys in the 90s.
Jimmy did more actual trash talking, though, for the other team. Sirianni just kind of, and I don't know what it is about it, but he gets on the fans' case that he'll point up to the fans. We stick it to you like the fans had actually something to do to the game. They didn't, but he more reacts to the fans. Jimmy would take on the other squad. Jimmy would take on other players. He was even more nervy than Sirianni back in the day. But what the two teams have in common is they're winners. Yeah, that does crop up from time to time. You got a winner out there in your town with Shanahan. He usually plays his cards closer to the vest. He doesn't coach with and act near with the emotion that Sirianni does.
Yeah, no, he keeps it reined in. How about injury-wise? You know, Philly went 92 plays on defense last week. I think they went 72 the week before against Kansas City. How are they rolling into this thing? I know Lane Johnson is the groin and Goddard's hurt, But like, how about Fletcher Cox and Jalen Carter up front? Milton Williams. What's their health situation coming into this one?
Legit question. Milton Williams was concussion protocol. So usually, if you're just tracking no two concussions are the same. But usually, if you're out for a week, that you can pass the protocol. So it would look like Milton Williams is coming back, but he hasn't been cleared yet, so you don't know that. Dallas Goedert, NFL Network reported last night, James Palmer, Goddard is fighting to play this week. He wants to play. Now, he got broken bone in his arm. They said the immediate speculation was IR 4 to 6 weeks. He's only missed 2 weeks, but apparently he's healing up, and they're going to put a big brace on, a cast on it. He wants to play. The Eagles may or may not let him. It's going to come down to the doctor, but he actually wants to be back. You asked me earlier about how big a game is it. Oh, it's huge for the Eagles. I know it's huge for the Niners. It's huge for the Eagles too. Goddard wants in. Even more so than injuries, they're actually getting better and they're getting healthier, is the fact that they're just playing short at defensive end. They released Derek Barnett last week, which Barnett had done next to nothing other than take up some snaps and give Sweat and Hassan Reddick a couple of plays off during the game. They took Nolan Smith with the 30th pick in the first round this year. He never plays more than 10 snaps a game. They've got him on this major leash. I don't know if they don't like what they see, but they are really pushing the envelope on their defensive end for number of snaps. Overtime this past week against the Bills didn't help, so they're doing even more taking of snaps. That scares me more than the injuries. They're relatively healthy. Their stars are healthy as of right now, specifically if Goddard comes back. They're really putting their defensive end, both of which are very good. As you guys know, Hassan Reddick got the Brock Purdy and tried to separate his elbow early on in the game last year. But at some point, and if these teams match up again in the playoffs, their defensive ends might be a little worse for the wear and tear.
How about the tackles, though? I mean, Carter went out of the game early. It looked like with a back. Jordan Davis either got his air knocked out or he just was tired on the sideline. And then Cox barely could make it to the blue tent. Are all three of those guys going to go?
Carter came back into the game shortly thereafter and blocked the field goal. Great middle of the line, just elevated and got his hands on a field goal attempt. So he was perfectly fine. Yeah, Jordan Davis was trying to chase down Josh Allen. He's not going to win that race. That's never going to happen. But they said he got up to 16.83 miles per hour. You get that heavy weight running and moving in the right direction, I guess you can get it to a good speed. Oh, yeah, he was just wiped. He going all the way to the sidelines to try and run Josh Allen out of bounds. He just ran out of gas. That was the problem. No injury there. Fletcher came back out, didn't play, but he came back out to the sideline, and he wanted to go, but they just wouldn't let him to go. He should be fine. The key guy is Milton Williams, who is part of that defensive tackle rotation. He's a question. If he doesn't pass protocol, if he doesn't pass the concussion, and he's out, you saw that there was a drop-off this past week they had to overtax their guys at both defensive end and defensive tackle. Milton Williams is a guy you got to keep your eye on and see where he is in the concussion protocol because he's had a very under the radar, very good year for the Eagles.
What is Jalen Hurts' weakness, and would you give him the MVP? I mean, he was second-round pick in 2020. I didn't see him emerging into this kind of player. I mean, I thought his runs were incredibly taxing on Buffalo's defense, including the game winner this weekend. But he also didn't play well in the first half. I think he'd thrown for 30 yards and had two turnovers. He had a bunch of turnovers earlier this year against the Jets. What's the good and the bad of Hurts?
Hurts' quarterback rating, and I don't know how you feel about quarterback rating, Larry. I think it's the worst way to judge a quarterback, except for every other way. It's got its faults, but it's still the best way to judge it. Hurts' quarterback rating at halftime was 7. Wow. 7.0. His quarterback rating in the second half was 138. So I think he kind of picked it up in the second half a little bit. He's the leader in the clubhouse for the MVP. He surpassed and rightfully should have Mahomes the week before, and then added to it with 5 touchdowns, 3 in the air, 2 on the ground the other day. He is the legit leader for MVP, and he absolutely can win MVP. He doesn't care. I care. Philadelphia fans care. Jalen Hurts doesn't care. He is just such a focused individual and locked into what he does and doesn't show his emotion, unlike his coach who shows his emotions too often. Jalen Hurts never shows anything. You look at him in the sidelines, you can't tell whether he's just gone 0 for 3 with a pick or 7 for 7 with a 20-yard touchdown pass. He looks the exact same on the sidelines after any drive that the Eagles have. I think the team takes from his strength and his leadership. His stats say he's the MVP of the league. His leadership says he's the MVP of the league. And more importantly, and most importantly, the Eagles' 10-1 record says he's the MVP of the league.
Where do you put Purdy in that mix? He's pretty close to the top in most of these quarterback stats.
I would say the top 5 right now are Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar, Purdy, Dak. Those would be the 5 I would put. If you're not putting if you think that it should be a running backs award, then Christian McCaffrey should be in the mix too, because he's the best running back in the National Football League. It's not close. But I don't put guys like McCaffrey or A.J. Brown or even Tyreek Hill would be a legit guy. I'd have Tua in that group too of the quarterbacks. Maybe I should have gone 6 deep in quarterbacks. I think it's a quarterback award. They use the word valuable. The game is constructed for the quarterback to be more valuable than anyone else. It's kind of a rigged game. So I think it has to be a quarterback, at least wouldn't if I had a vote. And I know Rob Motti, the head of the Associated Press, who runs the MVP voting. And I spoke to him last night and he said, yeah, they don't give them instruction. They've got 50 voters and they trust every single one of them to understand. He's had conversations with all of them, but they don't put anything in writing. They allow you to make your selection as you see fit. And the betting markets, who I think are the best judge because they're unbiased. There's no rooting interest involved. The only thing that matters is making the most money possible. They've elevated Hurts to the number 1 status, and that's where I think he should be.
Why are the 49ers a 3-point favorite in this game?
Is it up to 3? I know it's 2.5.
Well, I saw 3 on ESPN.com this morning. 3? I don't know.
That was so weird, Larry. The games end on Sunday night, and I check it. And the 49ers were a 2.5-point favorite. And I said, wow, that surprised me. Within hours, the Eagles became a 2.5-point favorite. And I said, okay, that makes more sense. And then last night, it goes back to the 49ers by 2.5 points. I'm going, this never happens. This never moves. Like this, I use VegasInsider.com, and they have like 8 of the top wagering sites that they have, so you can compare one to the other. And the movement on this has been crazy. I can't even begin to figure it out or factor it in. So I'm not touching this game with a 10-foot pole. I'll be staying away from this one with a vengeance on Sunday.
You still betting the horses?
Oh, yeah. I got one coming up from Parks there in about a half an hour, as a matter of fact.
Nice. Who's the most important offensive weapon outside of Hurts? I mean, if you're going to take one guy away and you're playing Philly, you take away Swift, you take away Gainwell, Devontae, Brown, Goddard when he's in there. Who's the go-to weapon?
See, here's maybe it helps to explain why the Eagles keep finding ways to win. The last 2 weeks, the opposition has taken A.J. Brown out of it. A.J. Brown was there with Tyreek Hill as a legit Offensive Player of the Year contender. He had 8 yards receiving 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, and I think he finished up with 30-something, including a ball. Talk about the luck. Had a ball that it looked to me like he caught and dropped and got stripped on the final drive of the game. And if Buffalo recovers, the game's over. Bills win. They called it an incompletion. He had it. He controlled it. He took a step just before his second foot come down. The ball comes loose. Not a non-reviewable play that very easily could have been judged a fumble. So again, Eagles are getting luck when they need to. So they stopped AJ 2 weeks in a row, and the Eagles still scored enough points to win the game. So I don't know. That's one of the things that make the Eagles good. It could be AJ. It could be Devontae. Swift has been that good. Here's the key on Swift, because Swift had an unbelievable start. Week 1, he gets 1 touch, 1 against the Patriots. Gainwell turns up hurt. Week 2 against Minnesota, he goes for 170. Week 3, he goes for 130. He went for 300 yards over 2 weeks, and then he dipped back down again. And what the hell happened? Jalen Hurts isn't running with the same effectiveness. When Hurts is a +1 and you have to defend the Eagles that way, that you have to show respect to him on the RPO and you can't just narrow focus in on the back, it makes it tougher for the back. The last couple of weeks, including that game-winning touchdown the other day, Hurts looked very much like the guy who was one of the better running backs in the National Football League last year. So if the Eagles can bank on Hurts, if Hurts can make a couple of plays with his legs in the first half, 49ers are going to have to play honest defense, which could make Swift the key guy on the Eagles offense.
Let's talk about the major factor from the last game, which was that the Eagles offensive line really pushed and bullied the 49er defensive line. And yet, the Niners have been much better on that defensive line in the last month. Since Chase Young came aboard from the Commanders, they've got 15 sacks in 3 games. Now, the Eagles, I think, have maybe the best offensive line in the game when everybody's healthy. They rank second in Pro Football Focus, their cumulative pass blocking grade. But Hurts has taken 29 sacks this season. That's the 12th most in the league, largely due to the fact that he holds the ball for 3.15 seconds. That's the slowest snap to release in the league. What do you think? I mean, the Niners they know they've got to be much, much better in this particular battle. And this might be the biggest challenge, really, because they got to have a powerful rush, but they got to have a disciplined rush against a guy like Hurts who will take any avenue you give him. Why has Hurts been sacked as much? And how is this offensive line now with a little bit more age? I mean, Lane Johnson's got the groin. He's going to go, right? Kelsey, ran back to the locker room before the overtime, but he came back out after 2 very uncharacteristic false starts. How good is this line? Is it better or worse than it was a year ago?
I wouldn't say better, and if I said worse, I would say not appreciably. Very close. It's Cam Jurgens fills in their second-year backup center to Jason Kelsey. He's going to be the heir apparent to Jason Kelsey at some point, but that could be 2032 because we keep saying Jason's going to retire this year, and all he does is continue to play. But Jurgens plugged in for Sayamalu has not been any issue whatsoever. He's been just as good. And I should have mentioned that earlier. You asked me about the injuries, but maybe it's because I'm speculating here. Lane Johnson tore some scar tissue with a previous injury he had on his groin, and that's why they ruled him out against Buffalo last week. The speculation is that he'll be good to go by Sunday against the 49ers. So I didn't mention that. I probably should have. Thank you for reminding me. That's Eagle offense. They're going to take some chances. They're going to take some sacks. They want Jalen to have the chance to make a big play downfield to either Smith and or Brown. So every once in a while, the 49er defense, and they got some good guys on the cover corner there. If they can stay with their guys, Jalen's going to hold it. He's going to give you a chance. He'll give you a chance to get a sack, but he's also very good at dodging them and then creating on the fly. The big touchdown pass he threw to Zacchaeus last week that gave the Eagles the lead in the fourth quarter was a complete schoolyard play. That wasn't anywhere near where it's supposed to be, but he extended the play, and Jalen can go either left or right. Some quarterbacks, right-handed quarterbacks, are only good when they're rolling out to their right. Jalen Hurts can do the left behind his back and throw the ball downfield. I think that's on the Eagles just because of their aggressive nature, that they want to give Jalen a chance to make a big play, and if they got to pay a price for it, they will, which means your 2 very good defensive ends will have shots at Hurts again this week.
What's the weather report for this thing? Do we have any idea what it's going to be on Sunday?
Oh, that's so funny. I'm being honest with you, Larry, I haven't even checked. When they were in Kansas City, I went to 10-day forecast before they didn't even play the week before, and I was already checking the Kansas City one. And we're down to 5 days, and I don't know what it's going to be like here in Philadelphia. Shame on me.
We know it'll be cold compared to here. We know it will probably be sloppy conditions, or it's not going to be a slow track, but it's going to be a slower track than they just were up in Seattle on that fast carpet for sure. The one thing, Jody, about the Niners is they love to attack the middle of the field because it generates a lot of yards after the catch. Now, the Eagles are a great tackling team. They eliminate a lot of those yards after the catch. But second year in a row now, Purdy's leading the NFL in efficiency on intermediate passes, averaging about 13 yards per attempt on those intermediate passes. The Eagles, if you look at the numbers, biggest defensive struggles have come on such passes between the hashes where they're allowing a 95.6 QBR. It's a lot of statistical mumbo jumbo. What really, ultimately the Niners are going to attack the middle of the field. What do you view as the weakness of the Eagles defense? Because, I looked at the box score and I watched the game. Cunningham, double-digit tackles. Morrow, Byard had 13. A lot of it was because it was overtime, but Blankenship, they had 4 different guys who had double-digit tackles this week. What's the weakness of the Eagle D outside of the front? The front is obviously real strong.
You made a good point about the 49ers using the middle of the field. Those guys get a lot of tackles. And when you're registering tackles, where are you making the tackles? If you're a linebacker, you want to be making it within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. If you're pulling a guy down 9 yards past the line of scrimmage on first down, yeah, you get a tackle. Not a good tackle. If you're getting them into a 2nd and 1 situation, their coverage on the second level is not what it needs to be. Their linebackers aren't great in coverage. Greg Kittle could be looking at a big game. Tight ends who aren't as good as Kittle are having big game against the Eagles this year. And their safeties, they went out and got Byard, which was an upgrade from what they had. He is a very good tackler, and there were a couple plays against Buffalo this past week. He doesn't make the tackle on the back end. The guy's going to the house. So he's a short tackler too, but he's not great in coverage either. So between their safeties and their linebackers, they're fine with their 2 corners outside with Bradbury and Slay. But their safety coverage and their linebacker coverage, there are plays to be made there, and the 49ers have the type of players who can make those kind of plays.
Well, it's going to be a really interesting game. I'll get your prediction on this one, but let me ask you this, because one of the things that really stands out is that the Niners have the better point differential by a lot, but 7 of the Eagles' 10 wins have come by 1 score. They've played and won the grimy games, where 7 of the Niners' 8 wins have come by multiple scores. Would you rather be the team with the fat, point differential that's maybe an example of your power, I guess, on both sides of the ball? Or would you rather be the team that keeps finding ways to win the close ones and are a little bit more battle tested? Which team is the better team if you're looking at the point differential coming in?
The world of sports, just in general, for me, has become too analytically driven. I get it. And I'm not an old school, screw the numbers. No, I understand that a lot can be learned, a lot can be derived. You can take from it and coach better because of it. But some people are so over the top and they think that numbers can solve absolutely everything. You still got to go out and block and tackle and win games. The number that means the most is 10-1. There's no getting around it. That's the most. I don't care about yards per game or margin of victory or plus minus. What's the record? 10-1, and the Eagles have the best record in the National Football League. So I give them an advantage there. I think there's one argument to be made for the Eagles and one argument to be made for the 49ers. The Eagles' argument is, if it's a 1-score game, and that basically is all that they play, they got Jake Elliott, and the guy nailed a 59-yarder on a bad turf with no time. He just is a phenomenal clutch kicker to have. I was on the air. I was on CBS while the game was ending, and my buddy who was hosting, Ryan Hickey, asked me, what do you think? I said, Jake's clutch. He's money. He's got ice in his veins. He's going to make this field goal. And sure enough, he did from 59. If it comes down to that, Jake will make the kick, and the Eagles will want to win a 1-possession game. If the 49ers win, they might win by more than 1 possession because they are more driven. They have revenge on their mind. They are. I wouldn't. My partner on Sunday on WIP said he picked Buffalo because they were the more desperate team. Yeah. I had not even thought along those lines and said, Al might be onto something there. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong. I stuck with my Eagles pick and I ended up being right, but maybe I didn't put enough to that. I would not use the word desperate because surely the 49ers are not, but they're the more driven team. And that could play to their advantage. They are more motivated coming into this game. Eagles have a little wiggle room. We keep saying it here in Philly. There's no team with 2 losses. 49ers tied for the second best record with 3 losses. Eagles have a game that they can afford to lose. I don't know if they will or won't lose it this week, but if they do, it might be because they realize they've got their wiggle room, and after the fact, they'll tell you that that's the case. During the game's actual play, will you see that? Will you acknowledge that? I don't know. That's up to whoever is winning the game, and I give the 49ers a shot because of that. They're more in not desperation, but they're more motivated to win this game than the Eagles.
Okay, Jody, you do a lot of radio, so you talk to the fans. You're on the front lines. You get a chance to get a real feel for it. What's the big dialogue centered on this week with the 49ers coming to town? Is it just a lot of trash talk? Is there a certain matchup the Eagle fan feels like they can exploit? Is there what what's the talk? What gives the Eagle fans the swag? If they didn't already have swagger, what would give them swagger, or what are they talking about on the airwaves out there?
It's it's funny, Larry. It's a carryover from last year, and I got a lot of this before the NFC Championship game, which I had to say, okay, if you're going to take that attitude, that's on you. I'm not going there. The Brock Purdy, same way the 49ers did after the fact, saying we would have won the game.
Right.
Eagle fans before the game was playing, Brock Purdy is not coming into our house and winning. Well, you don't know that. I'm glad that you have confidence. I'm glad that you feel that way, but I wouldn't use that word will not. Probably will not. I don't think he will. It'd be a surprise if. All those things you can say, but they're very definitive and declarative about Brock Purdy's not coming into this house and winning. Okay, if you beat, well, and you didn't beat Purdy last year, beat the 49ers.
Right.
But if Purdy's on the field for all 4 quarters and the Eagles do something they haven't done in a while, win by double-digit points, then yes, you're going to be able to go, what I tell you, Jody, Purdy's not winning in this house. But if Purdy goes in and wins, a lot of people are going to have to eat their words here in Philadelphia.
All right, the last one before the prediction is, what do you think of Purdy? Because, I mean, he was the last pick in the draft, but, I mean, as I was watching the punter, the Indy punter, McAfee today, and he had Michael Lombardi on, and Michael Lombardi made a good point. He's like, at some point, you just got to forget the draft position. We kind of fall back on that way too much. Lombardi says that he would give Michael Lombardi says he'd give Purdy the MVP. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would go there. He does have some really good stats. I'm not even sure if he's the MVP of this team, let alone the league. But give me a national perspective from, we're a little too close to it, Jody. You know, we're too in it. You could probably give us a better perspective on Purdy from afar.
I'm in agreement, borderline lockstep with Mike Lombardi, which I'm not always, but in this case, I guess I am. I thought Purdy was so underrated going into last year's playoffs. He played 5 games undefeated, had put up the best quarterback ranking in the National Football. But the only thing people could cling to was, well, yeah, but he was Mr. Irrelevant. So what? When you've played 5 games, Mr. Irrelevant goes out the window. Now that we're into this year, and he's got a year and change under his belt, and he's still got the best quarterback rating in the NFL, what more does the guy have to do? And there are people that are still questioning him. I don't get it. I don't understand it. We were talking earlier about wagering, and yes, I have my apps on my phone. I made only one future award-winning wager, and that was 50-1 in August when I heard he was practicing and was going to be good to go for the first game of the season. I bet Brock Purdy to win the MVP of the NFL.
Did you?
50-1 in August this summer. So it not a big amount, just a toss. Right. If I win, I'll find a way to spend it. I can guarantee you that. But it's not going to be paying off the rest of my mortgage. But just because I thought the kid was so underrated and had done enough last year to be just considered a franchise quarterback, and people were still saying, hey, he's Mr. Relevant. How about he win? Because of that, I was motivated to bet Purdy this year. I did, and he's in the mix. He's trailing Hurts. Hurts is the leader in the clubhouse, but he's in that conversation with Mahomes and Lamar and Tua and Dak, and all of those quarterbacks are very close. Whoever has the best 6 weeks left. If it's Hurts, well, he's going to win. But if it's any of those other ones, they could move to number 2, and if Hurts takes a step backwards, a guy like Purdy still could. I'm not saying he will. I'm saying he could get the MVP.
Well, it's interesting. If he wins this game in big fashion, his MVP, your chances of cashing that bet go way up.
Oh, yeah.
Is Shaq Leonard on his way to Philly, or what are you hearing there?
Oh, that's a good debate that we had on Birds 365 today, too.
Bruce R. in the chat is asking the question, hearing Shaq Leonard will visit the Eagles, think Eagles will sign him.
He's supposedly in Dallas as we speak, that the Cowboys brought him in, too. And he's supposed to be in Philadelphia potentially tomorrow. Well, if the Cowboys really want him and Jerry wants to go, he never leaves Dallas. He's scheduled to meet with the Eagles tomorrow, but if they blow him away with an offer and he wants to play, what does Shaq Leonard want to do? Does he want to make the most money possible, or does he want the best shot at the Super Bowl? The Eagles right now are a better shot than the Cowboys, at least my estimation. So how much does that factor in? How much does the money factor in? Even though they're meeting with him today, how he can pick up the phone and call his agent anytime he wants. And the Eagles don't put a premium on linebackers. They don't like to pay linebackers. DJ Edwards looked pretty good last night playing for Chicago.
He did. He had a big thump.
They didn't want to give him $6 million last year. So they just have a general philosophy of not overpaying linebackers. So if it comes down to money, he's going to end up with the Cowboys. If it comes down to winning a championship, he's going to end up with the Eagles. We should know in the next 48 hours.
And one super is from Carson Hummel. He says, can the 49ers exploit anything if the Eagles are pursuing Purdy on the play action? Should the 49ers only run play action towards Hassan Reddick to avoid deja vu? This is actually a question I should have asked you earlier. Last year in the matchup, what was really clear to me as the Eagles were getting 70 sacks on the year, a historic number, was that they really weren't reacting at all to a staple of Shanahan's offense, which is the play action fake. It was almost as if the play action worked against the Niners because it stalled their offense and quarterback for a half second as the rush is paying no attention to it. Is that the philosophy of the defensive coordinator there, to just, play the run on the way to the quarterback and don't react to the play action fake? Because Hassan Reddick made no reaction to the play action fake, and the ball on the play where it knocked Purdy out for the game.
Yeah. Bad guess on the 49ers on the play call on that play. And good guess by Hassan Reddick. And people who say they're not guessing like hitters. Hitters hate in baseball when you say, you guessed on the right pitch. They hate when you say, it's a guess. Right. Don't kid yourself. It's a guess. Yeah, that was just a smart play by Reddick. He read it right and made the right guess and got to Purdy and separated his elbow. The Eagles have their system. They stick to their system. They don't move off it all that much. Last year, 70 sacks. Part of that, Javon Hargrave, who I know is doing a nice job getting to the quarterback for you guys this year, paying him a lot of money to do so, but he's very good at that. The Eagles did okay picking the big kid from Georgia to replace him in the middle of that defensive line. Now, Eagles, the new DC this year, Sean Desai, will blitz a little bit more than they did last year under Gannon, but it's basically the same scheme. It's the Eagles defense, the way they play it. I don't expect them to change. They're that emboldened by their scheme that they're not going to change because of the opposition.
Jody, we'll let you get to your thoroughbreds, but give me a prediction on Sunday. What do you got?
I think Jake Elliott can do it again. I think it's going to be a close game that will come down to the 59th minute. And if the Eagles can get to within field goal range, if it's tied and or only down a point or two, I think Jake Elliott can make the game-winning field goal. This week, he made the game-tying field goal.
Yeah.
This upcoming week, maybe it's the game-winning field goal.
Maybe one of the greatest kicks I've ever seen. I mean, when you factor in the weather and the trajectory and the way he stuck that, and it would have been good. It was 59. It would have been good from 65.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe more. I mean, that was a big boy field goal. All right, everybody, check out Jody Mack, CBS Sports Radio on the weekends. IP a couple nights a week. You catch him in Philly. You probably catch it on the iHeart and Birds 365 on the Jacob Media YouTube channel on this great thing that we call YouTube. Jody Mack, you're the best, man. You're a made man with me. If you ever need me, last second you call me, I'm there for you. And thank you for jumping on the Krug Show, brother.
Krug, you are the man, and anytime you need me, all you got to do is call. And even if the 49ers beat the Eagles, if you need me next week, I'll come on. If the Eagles beat the 49ers, I may call you so we can have some fun. But thanks for having me today.
Jody, take care. The great Jody Mack in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He is fantastic. He is. And Digital Drew says, I dig this guy. Well done, Jody. Yeah, no, Jody's the man. Jody's the man. That's why he keeps getting gigs. That's why he's on CBS Sports Radio on the nationwide platform on the weekends. You can catch him on KMBR on the weekends. And then, of course, WIP a couple nights a week. You used to be able to catch him on WFAN and occasionally will, but Birds 365 on YouTube, on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. Thanks to Jody Mack. One more super from James Foster. He says, Philly people don't realize we lost our quarterback 1 in Lance, QB2 in Garoppolo prior to losing our QB3. At the time, no team has a legitimate player at QB4. Yeah, no, he because he had said, oh, you shouldn't have leaned on Josh Johnson. That wasn't the game plan. That wasn't the game plan, but, you could have made an argument that late in the year when these quarterbacks were going down that maybe the Niners should have gotten somebody who was a little bit more substantial or a little bit more ready to go than Josh Johnson. And it is something that you could question definitely with the way the thing ended. But, I mean, there's another way. The other counter to that is, hey, look, if you get to your 4th quarterback, it ain't your year. Right? If you get to your 4th quarterback, you weren't going to win anyway. I think that really is where I would go with it more than anything. It's like you get to your 4th quarterback, it probably just wasn't your time. It probably just wasn't your year. A couple thoughts on this thing before we call it quits on the live stream. By the way, later on today, Grant Cohn and I will stream around, I think, either 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock today. Then tonight, I will be streaming with the great Raj from our SF 49ers. So we got that to look forward to later on this evening. We also got just a busy week of shows leading into 49ers Eagles. And we're doing it big this week. We're going to go, obviously do our regular streams that we always do, but then we're also going to do some Philly streams, and this was one of them. Later on this week, on Friday, I will sit down with the former Eagle linebacker himself. The great Ike Reese will be in the house on Friday, and you can catch him on IP as well. Fantastic former linebacker, great analyst, cool guy. So Ike Reese on Friday. But, yeah, Grant later today, Raj later today. On Wednesday, I'll be down tomorrow. I'll be down in Santa Clara. We'll bring you all the sights and sounds from Niner Camp on Wednesday, practice footage, locker room interviews, podium sound from Kyle Shanahan. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we'll do our weekly call-in show with my son, the great Kevin Krueger, the producer of this channel. Thursday, we'll be down there as well. And then 6:30 Thursday night, I'm looking forward to it, reunited because they feel so good. Jesse, Vish, and myself reunited 6:30 on Thursday night. That should be a hell of a stream leading into the Niners and the Eagles. You know what I'm going to ask Vish today, because Vish was like, hey, if you want to do something earlier in the week, I'm thinking about Grant and Vish have not talked in a while. I'm thinking about asking Vish to join me on my stream today with Grant. And me, Grant, and the coach did a three-way, last week. We may go 3-way with Vish if Vish is up for it. I'll have to check the times as soon as we're off here. But I would love to add Vish to my stream with Grant today and really blow it out. And then Friday morning, 8 a.m., Damon Bruce will be here. 10:45, Chase Sr. will be in the house. And then, as I said, Friday afternoon, I think it's going to be 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Ike Reese will be in the house. Saturday at 9 a.m., the coach will be in his regular time slot. It'll be the day before the game. We'll be chopping it up. I can't wait for that. And then Sunday, Niners Eagles in the afternoon slate here on the West Coast, a 1:25 start. We'll go post game with myself, Kev, Rye, Danny, Baller, JD will be in the house. John Dickinson, the great John Dickinson, who's now a free agent. We will be doing a lot of Niner post game on Sunday, and then of course a lot of Niner videos, as well as Warrior stuff and Giant stuff between now and the end of the week. So a lot going on the Krug Show. A couple more points I want to get to, but first, let me just throw out a thank you to our sponsors. We are sponsored by, of course, the great title sponsor of the Krug Show, Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. Get the brisket chili. It's all great. The pulled pork, the barbecue chicken, the house-made sausages, fantastic. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. So thanks to them. Thanks to New York-style Italian sausage as well. The only kind of Italian sausage I will eat is New York-style Italian sausage. For Thanksgiving, I made my famous stuffed mushrooms, which have chives, breadcrumbs, garlic, parsley, New York-style Italian sausage diced up. What kind of cheese? Mascarpone cheese, melted, little Parmesan, salt and pepper. You get the big fat mushrooms. You dig them out. You bury all that stuffing in there, and brought them up to the in-laws' place, made some extra ones. They were freaking amazing. Amazing. So try the stuffed mushrooms with the New York-style Italian sausage. You will not be disappointed. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. Bottom of the screen, thanks to our sponsor, Marin Auto Glass, 415-883-3030. Sadly, in the Bay Area, there's an awful lot of windshields getting shattered, windows getting shattered. You wind up in a pinch. You don't know who to call. Call Marin Auto Glass or go to marinautoglass.com. Great company. They'll come out. They'll pop out the old windshield. You just give them the VIN number. They show up with your windshield. They pop out the old one. They glaze in the new one. They take away all the glass. They come to wherever you're at. It's nothing could be more convenient than marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030, marinautoglass.com on the web. Also, we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and Mojo Fantasy. And in both fantasy sponsors, if you type in Krug, K-R-U-E-G, in the click the link in the description, and in the promo code, type in Krug, K-R-U-E-G. They'll match you for your first $100. So, and everybody on the Mojo side who signs up automatically is entered into a drawing to win the Purdy or the Bosa jersey. We were going to give it away on Thanksgiving night, but Kev seems to think that we need everybody's more information before we can do that. So we're still continuing on with that as he gathers the contact information on the people that have registered thus far. But yeah, at Mojo Fantasy and Underdog Fantasy, I'm having a really fun time playing on both those sites, both outstanding. Type in the promo code Krug, and they'll match you on both sides up to your first $100. And we are sitting here today on the 28th of November with 28,716 total subscribers. We've added 1.5. We've had 1.5 million views of our channel, the videos and the live streams in the last 4 weeks alone. So I got to thank every single one of you. We've also added close to 2,000 subscribers in the last 4 weeks alone as well. So 1.9 thousand new subs in the last 4 weeks. So we've had over 200,000 watch time hours of our content in the last 4 weeks alone. So the channel is absolutely blowing up. If you're in the chat right now, if you're watching the show, if you're one of the hundreds there, and you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please do. If you hit like, it just helps the algorithm. More people find the shows. And if you hit subscribe, every time we go live, you hit that notification bell. Every time we go live, you'll get a little alert that we're going live. And of course, it's free to subscribe to the Krug Show. All right, couple thoughts on this matchup. First of all, Philly has been outgained by a combined 339 yards during their past 3 games. The Bills, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys, who are all playoff teams, you could argue the last 3 weeks have all outplayed the Eagles and all lost. In some ways, I think the Eagles might be primed for the picking. I think the Eagles are ready to fall. I think the 49ers are the fresher, more confident, faster football team. I think the Niners are healthier. I think they're more motivated. And outside of a couple weird bounces, I think they're going to win on Sunday. I really do. I think they're going into Philly, and I think they're going to win. The one thing you got to deal with here is both these D lines are ferocious. Since week 5, there are 2 teams in the NFC that have at least 3 players in the Pro Football Focus win rate for defensive linemen, and they're the Niners and the Eagles. Those are the 2 teams that have at least 3 players up front that are kicking butt. But the Niners, on the Niners side, since they got Chase Young 3 weeks ago, the Niners' pressure, which they were getting early in the year, has turned into sacks. Only 2 teams have a higher sack percentage in the last 3 games in the NFL than the 49ers. So getting out in front in the game and letting your defense kind of go to work, to me, is going to be a big part of this thing. If the Eagles get out front and the Niners have to play from behind, it's going to be very difficult. Niners have to get this game the way they like it, which is take a lead and let their defensive line feast. Since week 5, Nick Bosa leads the NFL in total pressures. He leads the NFL in sacks, and he leads the NFL in quarterback hits. Geno last week on Thanksgiving night was under pressure on 47% of his dropbacks, and it wasn't because Steve Wilkes was sending the blitz. Wilkes blitzed only on 9 of the 36 dropbacks. So the Niners are getting it done with their front 4. They're not blitzing. They're blitzing less since Chase Young came aboard. And the coverage with Ambry Thomas outside and Oliver on the bench has been considerably tighter. So, and then it's about the Niner offensive line. Can they stand up and block for Brock Purdy? Seattle pressured Purdy on 44% of his dropbacks. They blitzed him 40% of the time. Now, I don't think the Eagles are going to blitz that much. I really don't. And I think you're doing Brock a favor if you're blitzing, because you're giving him defined reads. You're giving a quarterback who processes fast defined reads. So unless you're going to blitz him and try to play games and trick him on the back end with late adjustments or, sliding robber defenders into the zones or whatever it's going to be, I don't know that blitzing him is the way to go. I think the way to go is get it done with your front 4, 3 if you can, and drop 7 or 8 into coverage, and see if Purdy, to try to take advantage of Purdy's over-aggressive nature. There were people who suggested that Purdy was not good on Thanksgiving. I've watched that game so many times, and I couldn't push back harder. He was phenomenal on Thanksgiving. He really was. He threw for 209 yards. It's not a lot of yards. 1 passing touchdown, obviously the pick 6. But the only turnover-worthy play was that pick 6. And the big-time throw percentage was 3.3%. You're talking about a second-year player who's really feeling it right now and playing outstanding football. How's he going to play in Philly? I don't know. But he's not going to play afraid. I asked him earlier this year about that. I said, how do you balance being aggressive versus taking care of the football? And he said, first thing you got to do is you got to take away the fear. You can't play fearful and timid, or you just won't play well, which is absolutely the right answer. One thing I think to look for in this game, it's going to be interesting to see how Shanahan divvies up the running back carries. McCaffrey played 51 plays in this last game. Elijah Mitchell played 17 plays. So McCaffrey is just absolutely on a different level right now. 19 carries for 114 yards against Seattle, 6 yards per attempt. His pick and slide, his ability, his health, his explosiveness, he looks the best he's ever looked. He had 3 runs of 10+ yards. He had 4 plays where there were missed tackles that he forced. So, he's not an easy guy to bring down. He had 69 yards after contact. So to me, McCaffrey is going to be obviously a major portion of this attack. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, Ronnie Bell. That's pretty much the Niner receiving core right there. I'd like to see Ayuk even get the ball more. He finished with 2 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown on Thursday. His average depth of target was 18.3 yards on the 3 targets. Jennings only had that 1 catch, but man, was that impressive. Caught 1 ball and outdueled 4 guys for a first down. I mean, Jennings is a beast. Jennings is absolutely, in some ways, the Niner culture player. I do agree that Kittle's got a feast here. He only had 19 receiving yards against Seattle, and he ended his streak of 4 straight games with 70-plus receiving yards. I think if the Niners are going to go to Philly and win on a mucky, cold, probably windy, wet day, I think George Kittle's got to have north of 50 yards receiving. They got to go to him. They got to utilize him. He's sure-handed. He's dependable. And then, the 49er offensive line, I do think this is the best line they've got right now with Trent at left tackle, healthy, Banks refreshed at left guard, Brendel at center, and then Feliciano in for Burford at right guard, and then Trent Williams at right tackle. I think that, Feliciano only he filled in for Burford this last week. He allowed 4 pressures and 4 hurries, which is not great. But I think he's a little bit more dependable. I know Burford's getting healthy and could be able to go, which is good. But I think I would ride with Feliciano at right guard this week. McKivitz gave up 3 hurries and 3 pressures in Seattle, but I think he's your best right tackle. And I've been saying it all year. We can talk about what he's not, but the reality is he's the best they've got. So they're going with it. What I mentioned to Jody Mack was that the Eagles have really struggled in coverage in the intermediate middle. And Brock Purdy has made NFL history with his passing efficiency where in the intermediate middle. So I think that's major advantage 49ers. And I think that's another reason why I think Kittle's going to have a big game here. When you look at last year's Philly team compared to this year's Philly team, to me, I see a couple of main differences. One, last year, they just seemed like they had a lot more energy and a lot more health and a lot more momentum as the season wore on. They were more dominant defensively. 7 of Philly's wins this year have been a 1-by-1 score. The Niners have 8 wins by multiple scores. Now, I think that benefits Philly in that they're more battle-tested than the Niners, but I also think it speaks to the fact that their defense is not as good. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is one of the most physical, dominating back 4 defenders in the league. He can play free safety, strong safety, nickel corner, outside corner. He's great. And he left. And he's in Detroit. Now he's hurt. But he's in Detroit talking a lot of trash to Debo randomly. But and not healthy right now. But, I mean, to me, they added Byard, and Byard had 13 tackles this last week, 9 solo. He's a tremendous coverage player. But they don't have that thumper on the back end that makes you go, where is that guy? That's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They don't have that back 4 intimidator presence that they had last year with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Byard's got sticky hands. He'll make a lot of picks. He'll get his hands on the football, but he's not going to start you like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So this is going to be interesting. The Niners have the top-ranked offense. The Eagles have the number 14th ranked defense. And then if you flip the card, the Eagles offense is ranked 4th. Niners defense is ranked number 8. But the Niners defense has been better recently. It's like you got an ascending 49er defense. But for the Niners, I think the game plan's real simple. Run the ball and attack the middle of the field with the pass, but take care of the ball. Purdy's leading the NFL in efficiency on intermediate passes. He's averaging 13 yards per attempt on those passes. The Eagles' biggest defensive struggles come on those passes between the hashes where they're allowing a 95.6 QBR. So Philly's defense is they've allowed a large share of completions over the middle of the field. But the one thing that both teams do well, they tackle really, really well. So if you look at yards after the catch, Philly's better than every team in the league. I think they're 3rd in the NFL in negating yards after catch or limiting yards after the catch. So, That's going to be a big one. Not just can Purdy complete some passes in their intermediate, can the Niner receivers get away and pile up some bigger yards after the catch? So I think that's one of the key ones. And then who wins? The big one for me is Niner D-line, Philly O-line. Philly's got a great O-line. Kelsey, incredible. Mailata, I think, is a future Hall of Famer. I really do. Lane Johnson is definitely a future Hall of Famer. Lane Johnson's got a groin injury, but you heard Jody Mack. He thinks he's probably going to go. Hurts holds the ball, and he'll hold it for 3.1 seconds. It's the slowest among all quarterbacks in the league as far as snap to release, 3.1 seconds. And he's taken 28 of the 29 sacks he's taken this year because he's held the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. So he puts a lot of pressure on a defense by holding the ball that long, but he also gives the defense an opportunity to sack him. And so hopefully the Niners can take away that first read, take away his run lanes. This is going to be the biggest task of all for the Niners defensive line. Yes, they're playing well, but you need a coordinated rush. You can't just have guys shooting up the field. You need a powerful rush, but you got to have a disciplined rush. That's really it. You can't give him obvious run lanes. If you do, he takes off. We saw it in the Buffalo game in the fourth quarter, in the overtime. There were some designed runs where they're trying to spread out Buffalo and run Hurts up the middle. And then when you see that, you got to react to that. And the Niners have great speed on that second level with Warner and Greenlaw. So how they react to that's going to be key. But the 49ers have done, I think, an incredible job since Chase Young has shown up at, really keeping the quarterback hemmed in the pocket. If you see the thing, look at the Seattle game. It seemed like it was multiple guys closing in on Geno all at the same time with no rush lanes. So they did a very disciplined job of rushing Geno in that game on Thursday. They're going to need to do that and then some against Jalen Hurts. Because the one thing about Hurts is it's a backbreaker too. When you got everybody covered, you got the offense that's got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, maybe Dallas Goedert back, DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, maybe a Gainwell. You got all these weapons. You got a great line. Oh, and then suddenly you got everybody covered and Hurts sneaks out the side door or, somehow steps up in the pocket and gets a run lane, runs for a first down. And everybody's grabbing their shorts like, oh, catch your breath. The key with the Eagles is something that Buffalo is able to do, and that is keep them out of third and short. They get to 3rd and 1 with their tush push. They're going to possess the ball. They're going to make a first down. They have an almost undefendable type situation there. So you got to win on 1st and 2nd down. I'd say the other major key in this game, you've got to play a clean game. The 49ers struggled in that 3-game losing streak. One of the main reasons they struggled is they fell behind the chains on offense because they had too many penalties. You have to play a clean game. The Eagles do not commit a ton of penalties. They don't beat themselves, at least not regularly. You have to play a clean game against Philly because they're not going to make a lot of mistakes. And if you do, it's going to be to your detriment. It's absolutely going to be a hard game to win if they get into 3rd and short or if you're committing lots of penalties. And it really starts with stop the run game, right? DeAndre Swift averaged almost 6 yards a carry. The Eagles against Buffalo averaged 5.8 a carry. And it wasn't all Hurts. Hurts ran for 4.6 a carry. Boston Scott ran for 7 yards a carry. DeAndre Swift ran from 6 yards a carry. You got to stop their run game. It starts there. Got to stop their run game. You can't give them the play action. If they got the play action pass with the weapons they have, the quarterback's mobility, the line they have, it's just too much. It's asking a defense to do too much. You got to shut down that run game and try to get them into some obvious passing situations. And then even in those obvious passing situations, Devontae Smith is a tough cover, and he's got really well above average ball skills. And even though A.J. Brown has been quiet the last couple of weeks, A.J. Brown was in the MVP conversation a month ago. He's had some monster games. I mean, if you look at A.J. Brown's season this year, he has just been absolutely, totally dominating. He's 6'1", he's about 230 pounds, and he's just monster. He had 10 catches against Miami for 137 yards and a touchdown. He toasted Washington for multiple touchdowns in both of those games. He had 9 catches for 175. How about this for a 4-game? This is A.J. Brown against the Commanders in October 29th. He had 8 for 130. Next week against Miami, 10 for 137. Next week against the Jets, 7 for 131. I mean, the guy is totally dominant. Against the Rams, 6 catches, 127 yards. Against Washington in the overtime game, 9 catches for 175 and 2 touchdowns. Against Tampa, 9 catches for 131 yards. The guy is super big time. Don't be confused by the fact that he's been quiet the last couple of weeks. He had 4 catches for 29 yards against Minnesota. He had 7 for 79 yards against New England early. And then the last couple of weeks, 5 catches for 37 yards against Buffalo. Only the 1 catch for 8 yards against Kansas City, probably dinged up. He had 66 yards against Dallas. So, I mean, some major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row where he went over 100 yards receiving. So A.J. Brown is just having a tremendous year, and he's so super big and physical, but he can run fast. So it's like it's one of these things where it's like you look at that guy and you go, wow. I saw him at Ole Miss as a sophomore, and I thought, man, look at this guy. 225 pounds, runs like the wind. He was in the same draft with Debo. They both were, I think they got picked within like 5 or 10 picks of each other. And obviously look at what they've become, 2 of the best receivers in all of football. And then on the defensive end of the thing, I mean, Kevin Byard has a great nose for the football. He's kind of a combination of Tayshaun Gibson, but with a better, younger, faster, better hitter. He's got a great nose for the football. So if you float something in the middle of the field, Byard, for whatever, you got reason to believe he's going to get his hands on it. Also, the Eagles have gotten ridiculous performances this year out of Zach Cunningham. The inside backer who was out there for anybody to have, and good pickup by Howie Roseman. He signed the former Vandy linebacker, and he's just been terrific. He had 10 tackles, 7 of them solo. He's big. He's rangy. The one thing with the Eagles that I'll be eager to see in this game, how is this game officiated? Because Bradbury and Slay are bigger corners that don't have the elite speed that they used to when they were younger. And it's just both those guys grab and clutch a ton. Slay is 32 years old. So he's heady and smart. Bradbury's 30. Bradbury's 6'1", 210. Slay's got good size on him too. They're bigger physical corners. How is this game called? If the officials allow Slay and Bradbury to just mug up on these receivers and get super physical with them, that's going to be major advantage Eagles. If the game's called tighter and they don't, because there's no question that the Niner receivers have a little bit of a speed advantage, even though they're not burners per se. Debo's not a burner. Ayuk's not a burner, but they've got a speed advantage on these Eagle corners, and how this game's officiated is going to go a great distance to determining who wins it. If they let them play and let all the physical stuff go, that's advantage Philadelphia for sure. A couple on the chat here. Bazzy Mion says, Kay Adams was trying to instigate more beef today when she was asking Debo on whether he's planned to do anything to Reddick in particular on Sunday. That's our job. That's our job in the media. Stir it up. Stir it up. Rich Merrill just drops a Jody Mack. Yes, Jody Mack is the best. Yeah, there's, the question too is who's more fired up for this game. I don't know. I think when the Niners talked up, the fact that they could have won last year if they had Purdy, and they believe they would have. that probably gave the Eagles some bulletin board material. So I'm sure the Eagles will be motivated. I just think the Eagles come into this game, the Niners get 3 extra days of rest and preparation. That matters. The Eagles, to me, look like a team that's as we hit December, is not looking quite as fresh and as fast as they did early in the year. And I think the Niners are primed for the picking. I really do. I think this is a game the 49ers are going to win. The key in this game, you can't, you got to make sure you either win or lose close. You can't get blown out, because then they have a psychological edge if you got to go back there in the playoffs. I think you got to stand toe-to-toe with Philly on their field, and you either got to beat them badly, beat them close, or if somehow you lose a close game, then, but you got to roll into that second game, which is likely going to be Niners-Eagles in Philly. Let's be totally honest about that. There could be an upset in the playoffs of either the Niners or the Eagles, but I don't think so. I think the Niners and the Eagles and the Niners, any way you want to slice it, these are the 2 best teams in the conference. And they're going to meet a second time. And that is either going to be, most likely it's going to be at the Link. If the Niners win this game on Sunday and somehow they can run the table and the Eagles can lose a game, then maybe it'll be at Levi's. But I firmly believe that this is the first of 2 Niners-Eagles tilts. So you don't want to get blown out. You don't want them to have that emotional, mental edge going into the playoff game. Drew don't care, says Crew. Give us the scoop on why JD left. You know what? I called JD last night, but I got the machine and I haven't talked to him yet. So I really don't know his situation. All I can tell you is he's a classy guy. He's a great guy. He's a good friend. We've been friends for years. And, I told him if his next step is YouTube, that I would gladly help him build up his YouTube channel the same way Grant Cohn helped me build up my channel. I would help JD build up his channel. I think when it comes time to talking about Warrior basketball, I think he's the very best. And I think he's also very good on the Giants and very good on the Niners as well. But to me, he's the best talking about the Warriors that I've heard in the market. And that's why I always have him on when I do Warrior live streams, because I love to hear his perspective. And he's a talented guy. I've known him since 2005, 2006. He ran the board at Sports 1140 in Sacramento when Chris Townsend and I did the Krueger and Towney show there on the weekends in 2006 and 7. And JD's a great guy. So he's very talented. There's declining revenues in old media right now. There's a little bit of a migration, if not a lot of a migration, of the audience. And with that, the revenues get tighter. I don't know if it's what the situation is, though. I really don't. Even though I do work for 95.7, I don't know how. Why they came to this decision, or if it was JD's decision, or if it was a mutual decision. I really don't know. I have no insight into any of it, other than to know that revenues in radio are just in decline. It's just a tough business. It's a tough market. There's a lot of people that are moving to the blogosphere, to the digital space, to YouTube, to, once the digital dash, was prominent in cars. Now you get in the car and you've got that digital dash. A podcast is on the same playing field as a radio station. A YouTube show is on the same plane as a radio station. It's all a button push or 2 away. So it becomes, maybe day one, terrestrial radio is going to win. But then over time, there's satellite radio and there's digital and there's all these different options. And then it just becomes about who's got the best content and where does the audience want to get their information, so on and so forth. So the great thing about JD is he'll be just fine, because he's very talented. No station made JD. He makes stations. So he'll be fine wherever he goes. And I'll say this, there's no classier person than JD. And I'll say this as far as the radio station. I love working for Matt Nahigian at 95.7. He's a great program director. I think of all the program directors that I've ever worked under, I feel like he's the smartest guy with the best plan. And he's a classy guy in his own right. So, I'm sure that however this came down, it was handled in a classy manner by everybody involved. G. Martinez says JD has bigger fish to fry. Mr. Joe says, how about Vish? Is Larry still mad at him? No. Vish and I will hook up Thursday night. If we don't hook up later today before Thursday night, not mad at Vish. Got frustrated in the live stream. Wasn't my finest moment. G. Martinez says, Larry destroyed Vish. No, just Vish kissed the ring, and they are good again. No, nobody kissed anybody. And we didn't not stream because of that stream. Yeah, we normally stream on Thursdays. Last week was Thanksgiving. The week before, somebody was traveling. Then there was a New York style Italian sausage party. So we had some conflicts in between. Jesse was traveling. But Thursday night, we will be reunited, and it feels so good. Peaches and Herb. All right. That's going to do it for the stream. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the 400 people that are still hanging. Once again, check out Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in Northern California, New York style Italian sausage, Marin Auto Glass, Underdog Fantasy, Mojo Fantasy. Catch me this afternoon with Grant and maybe Vish. We'll see. I got to ask Vish. Vish doesn't even know. I'm going to ask him. But Grant and I will either hook up today at 3:00, which would be in an hour and a half, or at 4:00. And then tonight at 7:00, Raj from our SF 49ers will be in the house, and we'll break down a lot of Niners with Raj. Tomorrow we're in Santa Clara for a full day, and then our call-in show Thursday, we're back in Santa Clara as well, and then the big show with Jesse and Vish. Friday is going to be a blowout Friday. Damon, Chase Sr., Ike Reese, the coach on Saturday, the pros game on Sunday. Keep it locked right here on the Krug Show, folks. If the Giants do anything in free agency, I promise you we'll go live with a Giants-related live stream. I'm thinking about maybe going live tonight after Warriors Kings with my Warrior crew. So I got to see what tonight looks like. Not sure if I'll have enough time. I have to go to Home Depot. I'm not sure if we'll have enough time. All right, there you go. I'm doing material here. All right, thanks to everybody, and of course, sign up at the Krug Show, like and subscribe. We're headed towards 30,000. Loving doing the Krug Show on a regular basis, and we're out. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.